for all being here and being part of this event. It's very, very important. And before I say anything, I'm just going to introduce a lovely gentleman. His name is Sadat. He is the Ghana Association President. Can we have a round of applause for him, please? And Sadat is going to do some really important jobs.
Thank you, Sarika. Thank you. It's quite a privilege this afternoon if you are here. In addition, because Sarika has already introduced who I am, I wouldn't go there. But I'll go straight to point and the privilege that has been given to me, share with you. We have a special guest who is going to introduce today's event. And if you join me to welcome the Children's Mayor, Larry May Guzman Dana, to come and introduce the event.
Hello, my name is Larry and I am the Children's Mayor of Southampton. I am very happy to be here today to open this important event. Today is about helping people understand more about neurodiversity in our communities. We will all hear personal stories and professional experiences. I hope everyone here and everyone watching online knows that support is available and that there are people in the community who want to help. I am sure we will all enjoy this afternoon and learn something new today. Now I am pleased to introduce our hosts for this afternoon. They are both parents of neurodiverse children. They care a lot about this work and have worked very hard to make this event happen. They are Sarika Chandarana, Vice Secretary of the Vedic Society Hindu Temple, and Gabriel Bochi, SEND Project Lead from the Ghana Association. Thank you.
Right. Before we say anything, we're just going to get a technology expert. The laptop is connected, but the projector is not showing the screen for some reason. Vidya, any luck? Do you want to get Kishan? He's in the mandir.
As you all know, my name is Gabriel.
The mic is not on.
Take mine.
Yeah. My name is Gabriel. Heard my name earlier on. And I'm going to be part of the facilitators for this event. My background, I'm the SEND project lead for the Ghana Association and also ex-president for the Ghana Association of Southampton as well. I also got a child who has got special needs, who's a neurodiverse, so I'm really, really passionate about anything to do with neurodiversity, and I do promote it within my community. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you one special person within our midst. She's done a lot of promotion around neurodiversity, and it's amazing the work that she does. And I'm really, really privileged to meet her, and I think we are really, really lucky to have her in our midst. So without going too much into details and the background, well, let's welcome Francis. That's Francis Akende. Francis Akende. But I think a big round of applause. Welcome again, Francis Akende. Thank you.
When
he was talking, I didn't realise he was talking about me. So that's why I was still sitting there. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon. I really appreciate it. It makes me a bit emotional coming back down to Southampton. I used to live in Southampton, and that's where I started my teacher training and where I started to raise my boys. And this is my eldest is 25 now. But some of the experiences I had in Southampton were not very positive, and it made me think, okay, I want to go back to London, be around my family and get that support. So when I got invited back to come down, I felt so happy. I thought, wow, things have changed so much from the experiences that I had with my children when they were younger to now. So I really appreciate being here. I have an hour to talk to you, and I have a presentation, so hopefully it will start working. But what I'll do is I have the slides on my iPad, so I'm just going to get it quickly while they set it up, and I can carry on talking to you. 1 second. And obviously it decided to do a software update as well, so I'll just give it a minute as well. So much technology, but this is what happens. Now I have to get one of my phones out and do the presentation from there as well. You know, sometimes when things are difficult, it means it's more important that you do it, isn't it? So we won't let it defeat us, we'll just carry on. Okay, so. Okay. So I have a quiz for you to do as a start, and oh great! It's as soon as I said it came back up. Wow! So I have a quiz for you to do at the start. Whoever is the winner will get a free copy of one of my books, which is a guide to neurodiversity, allyship and anti-bullying. So that will be your prize if you win. So I'll just say something about the terminology. So one of my roles is I work as an advisor for the Church of England Education Office, and we have some new guidance coming out on bullying and neurodiversity. So I wrote the guidance for them, and also because it's Church of England, you have to write it a certain way, and I thought I wanted to have a wider audience as well, so they gave me permission to write my own version as well. And the work I do with the Church of England, I'm so proud of it, because the guidance that's coming out, it should be out end of June, is the first guidance that's got an easy read version, so it's got pictures in it so children can interact with it, which is the first time. I can't believe this institution is so old, it's the first time they've got an easy read version of their guidance for schools. But there's some terminology that we use in the Church of England to describe certain things. So when we're talking about ethnic minority groups, they say UK minority ethnic or global majority heritage. So this is some of the terminology that we use in there, and as I give my presentation, I'll explain some more. So this is your quiz to say, what proportion of the UK, question 1, who's ready? What proportion of the UK population is from a minority ethnic background? What proportion of school-age children are from a UK ME background, minority ethnic background? What is the prevalence of neurodivergence in the UK population? So how many people have autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, things like that? Which ethnic group has the lowest rate of diagnosis of neurodivergence in the UK? And what proportion of school leaders are from a minority ethnic background? So, answers on the page. I'll give you the answers right at the end of the presentation.
Can we get a copy of your presentation?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think this is...
I'm sorry, it's not when this hand is up.
It's okay, I can do it from here if it's not. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Okay, cool, perfect. Okay. So I've titled my talk Race, Send and Our Communities, and this is my specialism, this is the work that I focus on, and I'll give you a bit of information about my background. So when I see it on the screen, my head looks so big. So I'm just looking at it, it looks so big. So I actually was, until October, end of October, I was a local authority inspector for Hampshire. So I live in Kent, but I have 5 boys at home, so I like getting out of the house. So I worked part-time for Hampshire Local Authority as an inspector and advisor. And as you know, Hampshire is a very big local authority. They have about 450 schools. So my job was to inspect their special schools and their mainstream schools to look at inclusion and make sure they're as inclusive as they should be. Before that, I was a head teacher of a special school for children for autistic pupils. Quite a large special school, so I had about 210 pupils altogether. Part of that provision was for children with mental health difficulties, unfortunately self-harming, eating difficulties, things like that. So my experience around neurodiversity is very broad. So I've always worked in education. I'm obsessed with education. I like writing books, I like studying. I've just finished my postgraduate in education and social justice, and then I'm doing another master's. This will be my 3rd master's. I'm doing a master's in psychology in September. So it's really, really important to me to think about education and how to work in education to change the system. That's very, very important to me. And I also write books as well. So I have 2 books that I've finished, or 3, I can't remember now. 3. I've just finished another one, and then I've just been commissioned to write another one. So the one that's coming out in August is on intersectionality, looking at race and special needs in education, which is what I talk about. And then I'm doing another one around school leaders that are neurodivergent and what that means for that experience. So I'm going to go through my why and why, is really important to say why I do this work. This is quite a small picture. This is me and my brother, my older brother. He's 6 years older than me. And I was just saying to the table there that I have to go and see him on my way home. He lives in Itchen Abbas. If I don't go and see him, I'm in trouble. And my dad will say, "Oh, you didn't go and see your brother? So disrespectful." So on my way home, I'm going to go and see my brother. So this is a picture of me when I was about 2. When I was 2.5, I had meningitis. And meningitis is a really dangerous viral infection. My mum said she knew I was ill because I didn't eat my food. And anyone that knows me knows I love my food. So she said she noticed that I wasn't eating my food. I was very lethargic. I wasn't really interested in playing and things like that, which is very unusual for me. So she called for an ambulance. she said, oh, you know, my daughter, I don't think she's feeling well, she seems very lethargic. They said, okay, you need to come into hospital. And she said, okay, so is an ambulance coming? And they said, no, you should get the bus. This, can you imagine when you've got a child that, you know, that you can die from meningitis, and they told her to get the bus. That was my mum's first experience, not her first experience actually, but that discrimination when you've got a sick child was very, very difficult. Luckily, obviously I survived. They didn't see any long-term difficulties that I had, but as I got older, I realized a lot of the difficulties that I had could be because of having meningitis when I was younger. So meningitis, a lot of children that have meningitis and recover, they still have some hearing loss, they still have some difficulties with, you know, recovering from a brain injury and all those kind of things. But I didn't have that follow-up assessment to check that I was okay, which again was really difficult. So this is my brother, me, my sister. I'm very, very close to my siblings, you know, very, very close. When my parents came to England, they were told that they wouldn't be able to do so well if their children were with them at home. So they gave us up to foster care. So I was fostered from the age of 3 to 13 in a really nice area in London, in Finchley, in North London. But that experience also has left a mark to say, that's not something that I could do with my children. I understand the difficulties my parents are going through at the moment, but it's made me very close to my siblings. So I wasn't brought up with my brother, but me and my sister were brought up together. So all the things around family and what that looks like are very, very important to me. When I was in primary school, I was so happy. I was so happy. I loved being in primary school. I loved learning. I had really good friends. I was just happy. But when I went to secondary school, it all changed. That's me in secondary. People say I look a bit more like I've got a bit more of an attitude into secondary school. But I just found it really difficult, and I didn't understand why I found learning so difficult. Even on my first day of school, I went into the classroom, I had my timetable, I went into the class, and the teacher said, you're in the wrong class. It had said set 1, and he said, you're in the wrong class. He just looked at me and said, and I still remember this now, he looked at me and said, you're in the wrong class. And that was the first time I remember having to fight for myself and my education. And I remember standing there saying, no, my timetable says set 1, I'm in set 1. So that's my, you know, that's my class. And eventually he just gave up and said, oh, go and sit down. Now, that shouldn't have happened. I was bright enough to be in set 1, but I've had to fight for my education my whole life, and so have my parents. And this is why I think I'm so obsessed now with being overqualified, you know, getting more and more qualifications, because I've found as a school leader, as a black school leader, I have to be overqualified. There's a lot more scrutiny around my work, and, you know, as an inspector, sometimes I'd go to a school, they'd speak to me for about 45 minutes before I was allowed to go around the school. I've been to schools, not in Hampshire, I have to say, when I was an inspector in London, also, where I'd walk in and they'd say, are you the interpreter?
Yeah.
And I'd say, what made you make that assumption? You know? And they'd lead me somewhere else, or they'd say, oh, you can't be by yourself. Or they doubt the fact that I had my safeguarding or anything else like that. There was one school I went to where the assistant head he said to me, oh, do you need the toilet? And I said, no, I'm fine. He goes, oh, that's good, because I'd have to follow you. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. But these are some of the experiences I've had in education, which makes me even more determined to talk about it. So, as I said, my education is very important to me. I went to university a bit later, but then once I started learning, I just couldn't stop. And every time I haven't got a course to do, I get bored and I sign up for another one. So this was me when I was a head teacher in my last school, and that was such a happy experience for most of it, but it's in quite a deprived area in Kent, so I did get quite a bit of racism from some parents, from some children. which was very hard to deal with, and from colleagues as well. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to be in the way of the picture. Is this okay standing here? Okay, perfect, okay. So this is me and my boys. I have, as I said, I have 5 boys. The eldest is 25, and despite me trying to put him off, he's just qualified to be a biology teacher. So he starts his first school in September. I have twins that are 23 now, and I have a 19-year-old and a 13-year-old. My fight in education has been because of them. The first school that I was in Southampton, we lived in Woolston. My first son, when he was 5, when he started school, he just became really quiet and withdrawn. And we didn't know why, because he was always such a happy, outgoing child. And then he came home and I said, you know, what's wrong? He said, children won't play with me. And I said, well, why? Why won't they play with me? They said, oh, because of my skin. They keep just touching my skin. So obviously I thought, okay, this is not good. Maybe the school aren't aware, the head teacher isn't aware. I went into school to speak to the head teacher, and I was really shocked by her attitude. She said, well, the children are fascinated by him. What do you expect? And my heart just broke. I just couldn't believe that was her response. So I took him out of the school, and he went to a school around the corner called Ludlow School, and it was completely different. They walked me around and I cried, and the lady that walked me around, she just patted me on the back. She said, he'll be okay here. And that reassurance meant so much to me. Especially because he was the eldest and then he had twins after him, he didn't really appreciate that at all. But with the twins, one of them has ADHD and dyspraxia, the other has autism. So very, very different presentations in both of them. When my son, one of the twins, was 7, he's always had speech and language difficulties, disfluency, had a stammer. And when I went to speech and language therapy, they said, okay, we'll come in for speech and language therapy and we'll video you playing with him. So they videoed us playing together, and then they asked us to come back. They showed me the video and they said, see, there's nothing wrong with him, it's the way you're playing with him. You're not interacting with him, that's the issue. And I didn't know any better at the time, so I just blamed myself. And then as I got to know, I realised that that wasn't true. So when he was, this was when he was about 5 actually, when he was 7, the school that he was in at the time, by this time we'd moved back to London, and we had an educational psychologist that came in to see the twins. She spent about an hour talking to me about my experiences, and then I said, oh, what happens next? And she said, oh, nothing, I'm just fascinated because I've got twins. So I just wanted to see what that experience was like. My heart broke again. After that, I said to myself, you know what, I'm not going to let people keep dismissing my experiences, and I'm going to become the expert in the room. So I retrained as a special needs coordinator, and as I said, I became a head teacher of a special school. I've worked in alternative provision. I said, I'm not going to let anyone do that to me and my children. So by the time I was ready to look at an autism diagnosis for one of my sons, I went into school and I said, you know, I'm concerned, you know, he's really struggling, I think he might be autistic. And the teacher said, he's not autistic, he's just arrogant. And she said, he's very arrogant. He says he's going to go to grammar school, and he says he's going to be an accountant, and he says he's going to do all these things. He's only 7. It's very arrogant for someone of his age to say that. Emmanuel did go on to grammar school. He did go on to university. He did economics and accountancy. He got a first and a distinction in his master's. He was headhunted by the Department for Work and Pensions in his 2nd year, so he got a job even before he finished. And now he's working for the Ministry of Defence, he's in London, he's got his own flat, he's doing so well. And I really look back and say, what would that have looked like if I'd listened to these people telling me about my children and not listened to myself? And that's so important to me to say to parents, you have to advocate for your child. You have to. It's so important because you will be dismissed all the time. You know your child best. I know my children best. But unfortunately, I get a lot of parents who are lied to or dismissed, and they don't know the systems, they don't know how to fight. So I do a lot of parent advocacy work at the moment to support children. So I always ask this question for people because I think sometimes when people work in education, they forget their why. They forget why they're in education or why that's important to them. And for me, I always remind school leaders to say, who is that child, young person or adult who forces you to remember your why? What makes you care for others? And to reset them with that question is so important. For me, and it's not a very nice story, but this is why I continue to do my work. So this was one of my students, Isaac Zubu, and he was in my school. He really struggled with adolescence and with his hormones, and he was mostly non-verbal, so he couldn't really express his difficulties and things that he was going through. We were really concerned about him and how to support him, and the local authority where I am in Medway in Kent said that they couldn't justify putting support in place for him. Unfortunately, in the Christmas holidays, I checked in with his dad. I had my work phone. I said, if you need anything, just call me. And then I got a call to say that, unfortunately, he'd run into the road. His dad had fallen asleep. About 10 o'clock, he'd run into the road and he'd been knocked over. Unfortunately, Isaac passed away a few days after that. But the local authority at the time said that they didn't want any attention about it. I found out later on that they'd had 2 other cases of children with autism that had died in the area. So they'd been told if they had another case, then there was going to be an investigation. So when that happened, I just couldn't let it go, and I'm not going to let Isaac's death be in vain. I ended up whistleblowing to the BBC, who did an investigation on it. I was so scared. I was just like, that's the end of my career. I'm not going to be able to work in education again. But the strange thing is, I got my job in Hampshire after this happened, and they were so supportive. And then I realised not everybody in education is like that. There are people that really do care for children and young people and want the best for them, and we have to be in education to make sure we do get the best of them. So everything I do now is in memory of Isaac and the experience that I've had in education. Thank you. But it did take a toll on me, and I realised then, after Isaac's death, I was like, why can't I let this go? Everybody's just telling me to let this go. And I started to get really, really ill. And they say to you, your body keeps a score. We don't always listen. And my body was telling me, Francis, you need to rest, you need to rest. I'm like, no, I've got my school to run, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and I didn't stop. I started to get sinus infections, and I started to get really dizzy, and then eventually I found out I'd lost my hearing in my left side, so now I wear a hearing aid in my left side. They thought it was a condition called Meniere's, and then they said to me, oh, have you ever had any brain injury or anything like that? And I said, well, no, but I had meningitis when I was a toddler. They said, oh, there's a link between meningitis and hearing loss and ADHD. I never, even though I'd worked in education, in special needs all this time, I'd never focused on myself and my own needs. And then I just started to get one diagnosis after another. I started off with hearing loss, then they said you've got ADHD. When I went for my assessment for ADHD, I was fortunate I was able to pay for it privately, but then the NHS wouldn't accept it. So there's no doubt I have ADHD because I got diagnosed twice in 7 months, once privately and once by the NHS. When I was diagnosed with ADHD, they said, oh, you might be dyslexic. I said, no, I'm not dyslexic. I read well, I write well, I've been to university, I'm not dyslexic. Obviously, I was dyslexic because I think the myth of dyslexia is not just reading and writing, it's processing. It's your working memory, it's your auditory memory as well. So I got to the point where they kept diagnosing me with things. I said, I'm neurodivergent, I know that, I'm just going to get on with my life now. And that's what I've been doing. So, as I said here, this is my journey. But then I realised how amazing my brain is. And I realised that actually being neurodivergent isn't a negative. I have so many special qualities about myself, and my children have special qualities, and the children I work with have so many special qualities. So I was determined not to see it as a deficit or a disorder. I was looking at what makes us so great, you know, and this is what my work is about, just changing that narrative. So I talk a lot about the strengths and challenges of neurodiversity. So I can say I've got all of these things. So I understand all the challenges that come with neurodiversity, but also the strengths. My attention to detail, my ability to see patterns in things that mean before something happens, I can say, if you look at this, the history of this and what's happened in different areas, this is going to happen next. If it's like, oh gosh, why do you have to go into so much detail? Lo and behold, a few months later, oh, we just had a complaint about this. I told you, don't listen. So it's all these kind of things. I can get quite stuck on certain things, but actually that's what makes me a good inspector, because when I walk into a school and they say, oh, don't worry about that, let's look at this, I'm like, actually, let me go and look at what you told me not to look at. You know, all those things are really important for my role. So it's thinking about, you know, how I think, that creativity. A lot of people who are neurodivergent are visual thinkers as well. We think in pictures about things. What does that mean for our processing and things like that? Really, really important. So when everything happened with Isaac and I decided to leave headship at the time, I started to write more articles about things and speak out more. I wrote this article and I was so annoyed when I saw it, because when you look at it, you can see that the title that they gave it, Double Jeopardy, I was like, why would you call it Double Jeopardy? It's not a crime to be black and to be neurodivergent, to be disabled, and I was really annoyed at this, at the framing of it. And then the picture of the child sat in front of the TV, like she's not being, you know, looked after. I just didn't like the framing. And I thought, this is what happens, you know, this experience is seen as a negative, and I wanted to change the narrative around it. So, as I've said here, it's a lot to do sometimes looking at racism and looking at ableism and putting that together and thinking about the harm that that causes as well. So I did an article for an organisation which I've actually come full circle again, because now I'm a member of Special Needs Jungle, so I support them and their work. We just interviewed the school secretary a few weeks ago, and I write articles and things for them. But I saw this, they wrote a survey, and I saw it and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. So I wrote an article, you know, looking at that, which we called Intersectionality, Race and Send, a Call to Action. And the word intersectionality comes from Kimberly Crenshaw, and I just loved what she said. If you see inequality as a them problem or unfortunate other problem, that's the problem. You know, this is why I was so determined to come today with everything that's going on. We have to work together. You know, we have to do things together. And just because something doesn't affect me because I'm up in Kent doesn't mean it's not a problem for all of us, you know. And that's really important. Thank you. I like your table. So I do a lot of work looking at Kimberly Crenshaw's work, and she coined the term intersectionality, as I said, looking at all these different factors and how they interact and how they compound. So it's really important to me, as I said, to look at what that means in terms of inequality. Now, just going into that in a bit more detail, there's certain things that we focus on in schools that are really important, but then that means sometimes we ignore other things. So So we're very much looking at, you know, what gender and class, the experience of girls in education, you know, things that we're hearing about boys and masculinity and toxic masculinity in education, looking at class, what that means for children who are disadvantaged and poverty and things like that. But sometimes we're not good at looking at things together and thinking, okay, what does that look like together? If you're, you know, a boy and you're disadvantaged, if you're a girl, if you're disadvantaged, if you're from an Asian background and you're disadvantaged, what does that mean when you put those things together? We're not very good at looking at those, which is why I look at those in a lot more detail. And when we're looking at the statistics, we know that a child is more likely to be recognised as having SEN needs, have special needs around the age of 9. Because what we see is there's a lot of myths in education actually where we think that autism is the most prevalent need. It's not, it's speech and language. And as children get older, we see this gap between themselves and their peers. They struggle with their expressive language, but it looks like behaviour. And a lot of the children, they don't have that understanding of how to say things in the right way, so they get themselves in trouble. That's a speech and language difficulty, but we don't always see it. And we know that boys are more likely to get an EHCP plan than girls. And that's because when we look historically, a lot of assessments were built on boys. Girls weren't included. So now people say, there's so many girls that are being diagnosed, there's so many ethnic minorities that are being diagnosed, because we weren't the focus of assessments in the first place. So now there's been a catch-up with people talking more about their experience. So with EHCPs, the most prevalent need for EHCPs is autism. But as I said, the biggest need is speech and language. Children are more likely to be excluded from school for SEMH, social emotional mental health difficulties. And the thing I like about the reforms that are coming through is that now they're talking about executive function. So they're thinking more around, okay, all children can experience mental health difficulties, but sometimes that is coming from anxiety, that's coming from a child's working memory. You can't work, you can't concentrate if you're feeling anxious, if you've got other things going on. I was asked once to go, I used to be a specialist advisor for speech and language, and I was asked to go and see a child. They said he had social emotional mental health difficulties. I went into the school and I spoke to him and I said, you know, and that's the first thing, a lot of time in schools they don't actually have time to talk to the children, which is so important. I always say to a Senko, have you done an observation? Have you been into the class? And a lot of the time they say, no, I haven't had time. That's why I've asked you to come in. You know, and this child, I spoke to him and I said, you know, your teacher says you're struggling in school. You know, can you tell me how you're feeling? He said, I'm worried about my mum. And I said, okay, what's going on at home? And he said, you know, my dad, he's always hitting her, he's always shouting at her. I just want to check that she's okay. And I spoke to the Senko and I said, you know, he said he's experienced domestic violence. And she said, yes, we know. And then I said, well, why have you called me in to say that he's got, you know, a behaviour difficulty when actually he's going through trauma right now? And I think sometimes with children, people say it's behaviour and they don't look at what's going on underneath, and that's really important. I always say behaviour is secondary. What's underneath that behaviour, what's going on? So this is why I'm so focused on intersectionality and that mislabeling. A lot of children get mislabeled with needs and they're not actually investigated for the needs that they actually have. So a lot of children, they don't get a diagnosis of autism, ADHD, dyslexia until they leave school. I don't think, and I'm very passionate about this, you should not be allowed to leave primary school without being able to read and write. I just don't understand why more work isn't done for children in primary school who can't read and write. I just don't understand it at all. After the phonics test, if a child has not passed their phonics test and they've redone it, they should be doing a dyslexia intervention and dyslexia assessment. I don't understand how children can go right the way through primary school without having those needs identified. So I talk a lot about that and what that looks like. So, like I was saying, saying, I talk about how race, what that looks like with special needs, and what that looks like with disability and poverty, and what that looks like with trauma, communication needs, all these things that I've been saying. Adultification, especially in black children, you know, we had the case of child Q, who was strip searched in school. And even saying it out loud, I just cannot believe this happened to a child. And actually, it happens to a lot of children and parents aren't told. And I just cannot, my brain cannot comprehend how that can happen when a school is meant to be a place of safety for children. I just don't understand it. But sometimes children aren't seen as children, and that's the problem. They're still a child. And what that looks like culturally, things like that. So when we look at suspensions, we've just had some results looking at children not in education or training or education, especially when they get to 16, what that looks like. And what they found is most children that are in that category have got special needs, have got EHCP, which means not enough work is done to support children. I think now they say about 70% of children with a diagnosis of autism go on not to work, and that's a terrible statistic. So it's thinking about what we can do at when children get older to make sure that they're in work, and you know what that looks like in terms of the higher rate of suspension. Now, a lot of people, they don't think about the history of what's happened in this country and why parents from different communities don't trust schools or trust the system. Before I go on to tell you about this one, there's actually been two other really prominent cases. There's a school, brilliant school, I went to inspect it, it's called Trelaws Special School. But in the 60s, they had a scandal where they were allowing children to be experimented on. So there was a local university, and they were looking at blood issues, and they were using contaminated blood on the children. Now, when you think about the most vulnerable children, you think, that can't happen here. People wouldn't do that, they did. Which is why we have such strict rules now about things. There was also another scandal which was in the 80s and 90s called the Chapati scandal. And this is where a university was targeting pregnant women amongst Asian communities. And you know, food is so important to us, sharing food, you know, being generous with our food. They were going to doorsteps and saying, oh, we've got some food for you, have some chapatis. The chapatis were laced with chemicals. They weren't telling the parents, the mothers, the pregnant mothers in particular, that they were looking at iron levels. So there's still legal cases now where their children were born with deformities. You know, mothers were being poisoned. This is in England. So then when people say to me, well, there's certain parents won't talk to us, we don't have that trust in communities, I say, well, that's why. These stories are passed down to keep us safe. And when you hear stories like that, you're just like, no, I'm not going to trust people if they tell me to eat this or do this. I'm just not going to believe it, because these are real stories. So what happened with Caribbean communities is that children were removed and they were put in special schools, and they were told that they couldn't be in mainstream education, and there's still legal cases going on now for this. And then people found out it was actually the local authorities that were doing this and saying that your children are better off in special schools. And these were called schools for educationally subnormal. That's what they were called, ESN schools. This was right until the 80s. So children were taken away. The BBC did a documentary about it, and you can still see the documentary, and it's called Subnormal, a British Scandal. So Bernard Coed was a teacher that found out about this. We started to speak about to the community and tell them that this was happening, and eventually that caused a change in the law. So that's why it's so important to kind of know about these issues. So, to me, it's been so important. I'm sorry, that looks so small. I don't know why it came out so small. We've had a big history of changes in the law, to kind of think about how we can think about equality a lot more. And now we've got the white paper that's going through the Children and Families Act to say that every child should be achieving and thriving. So the Labour government are putting this through by 2029, 2030, obviously because they've got an election in that year, so they want to make those changes before that happens. And what they said is they want children to be in their local schools. So every school has to have a resource provision, and that's what's going to at the moment. So I've just been an expert advisor on the DFE guidance around resource provisions. We had a meeting last week. I can't say they've listened to everything that we've said, so if things come out and it doesn't look good, don't blame me. I tried to tell them, but they don't always listen. But there is some guidance coming out about that soon. And then what this means is that every child with special needs in mainstream school has to have an individual learning plan. And it's nothing new. We used to have these years ago, but then we stopped them because people say there's too much work. No, you need to have an understanding of that, of your child's needs and what that looks like. So that's coming back. And they're saying that there's going to be more support. So I've said ISP there, I don't know what they're going to call it, maybe individual support plan or individual learning plan, whatever that looks like. And there's not going to be, you're not going to get an EHCP as easily, or as they say, as easily. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's a horrible, drawn-out process. I have a parent at the moment that I'm supporting. He was trying to get an EHCP for 2 years for his son. Because he's quite well known, he went on Newsline and made a complaint about the local authority, and then all of a sudden the next day they issued the EHCP. You know? That is just ridiculous. He spent about 25,000 of his own money getting all these assessments for his child because the local authority refused to do it. That is just ridiculous. And they issued an EHCP without any assessments. I just couldn't believe it. So I started working with him because the EHCP was terrible. The things that were written were terrible. And they put his child straight in a resource provision when he didn't need to be in there. They actually named the resource provision on his EHCP, which is illegal. So that's why we're going through that at the moment. And sometimes I tell people stories and they're like, nah, that didn't happen. I'm like, it absolutely did. You know, it's shocking sometimes. If you don't know the system, the things people try and get away with. So it's just thinking about what that means for inequity and how we kind of work together to fix the system. To me, community is at the heart of that. And I go into so many schools where they say, oh, we've tried to reach out to communities and they don't want to talk to us, they don't want to know. I'm like, well, you need to try harder. You know, it's not about saying, oh, we've said to people to come and they won't come in. Go out. I had a head teacher who said to me, I've been invited to a church by a parent because they want to do a celebration of my support for them because I don't know whether I should go. And I said, absolutely go, that's brilliant. You know, that's a way for you to speak to people and get involved in the community. And he went and he had a great time. You know, it's things like that. Sometimes people think, oh, we have to put boundaries in place. We can't go out into the community when you absolutely should. It's so important. And it's thinking about all these systems and stuff that we have around us and what that looks like. So, as I said, I focus a lot on race because I find that children from minority ethnic backgrounds do not get the support that they need or should be getting. And so that's my job to make sure that there's more highlight around that. So in England specifically, children from ethnic minority backgrounds are overrepresented for some types of SEN and underrepresented for others. So you're more likely to be given the label of social, emotional, mental health difficulties. These are the statistics from the DFE, and it was so hard to find it. It took me quite a while to get it, but this is the truth. So Asian pupils with their classes, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and other, they have a big category of other. And what does other mean? My identity is an other. What does that look like? Are half as likely to be identified with autism. And I don't like writing this. This is the DFE. They still will not change this. And I've just written exactly what it says from the DFE compared to white British pupils. Black Caribbean and mixed white Black Caribbean pupils are twice as likely to be identified with social, emotional, mental health difficulties, not the underlying needs. And these patterns have been consistent for over a decade, which is just shocking. So people know about it, they're just not doing anything about it. And I do training all over the country. So I was in Nottingham talking about this, I was in Liverpool talking about this, and they know it, but they're still not doing anything to change it. So those kind of barriers lead to long-term difficulties, which is really important. Now, I'm a data person. People look at this and roll their eyes. It's my favourite data overview. This was a massive study. I think it was done with over, I always write it down because I always get this wrong, 500,000 pupils. It was an analysis of 500,000 pupils. So this was by the University of Oxford. They asked every local authority to give them their statistics around children, and they broke it right down. So these were the children that were identified as having SEN needs and what that looked like. So you can see for each community, you can see the amount of children that were identified, what they were identified with. So did they have any moderate learning difficulties? Had they ever been identified as having SEN? Whether they were identified as having social, emotional, mental health difficulties. What was really interesting that they said that we have to take into account is when a child is born. And it's such a simple thing to think there's going to be a big difference between a child born in September and a child born in August in the same year. So in my area, if you go to grammar school, the test is altered slightly to take into account that this child is 11 months younger than a child working, born in the 1st of September. So this statistic, I'll give you the slides, analyse it. I know you're like, oh my gosh, boy, it's so fascinating. It's really, really interesting. And what does that look like in terms of literacy levels and things like that, and the impact that it has as well. Time's gone fast, I've only got 10 minutes left, so I'll quickly just go through this. We have seen a lot of bias in schools, we can't get away from that, which is why I say it's so important to have multicultural schools, to have more leaders that are from ethnic minority backgrounds as well. So I know my experience with Isaac, his parents felt a connection with me because they were Nigerian, I'm Ghanaian. They felt that I'd have a better understanding of what they were going through. And I try to explain that in schools sometimes, and it's really important that people listen to that. You understand your communities, you understand how to talk to people in your communities, and schools need that training on that. So it's really important that those connections are made with schools as well. A lot of the time, as I said, what would that look like if I listened to my children's schools, My son wouldn't have been doing what he's doing now. My children wouldn't be doing what they're doing now. So it's so important to question what people are saying about children and young people, especially when they say social emotional. Social emotional mental health is not a category that is diagnosed, it's an opinion. So you can have a child in a very strict school that's not listening, not following the rules, and they'll say it's behaviour issues. And then that child is stuck with this label of SEMH throughout their schooling. So when I do an EHCP for a child from a minority background, I say we're not going to write SEMH as the first need. We have to do those assessments to look underneath that, because that's an opinion, it's not a fact. What does that look like in terms of assessments? As I said, an educational psychologist came into my son's school, didn't do an assessment. Why didn't she do an assessment when she'd been asked to do that? So what does that look like? The lack of support. So this is why I talk about my experiences in education as a parent, as a neurodivergent person, and somebody who works in education. Sometimes staff can be very dismissive. So sometimes I wrote an article in his Senko is the gatekeeper, and it's so true. Sometimes you can go into a school and you can say to the Senko, can I have some support? They say, oh no, we don't see that, and that's the end of your journey. I was very lucky with my son's GP. I went to the GP instead. He said, absolutely, we'll support. And if I hadn't had that option, I wouldn't have got any support for my children. So it's really important that people are listened to with that. Again, as I said, with lack of representation. A lot of the time in schools, as I said with Child Q, it's supposed to be educators in place of a parent. And you can't be in place of a parent if you don't see that child as your own. That's it. And this is the thing I'm very passionate about. This is a quote from Hillary Clinton, which said there's no such thing as other people's children. You can't work in education if you don't feel that all children are equal. You shouldn't be working in education. I'm very passionate about that. And this relationship is two-way between the school and the parents and carers. That relationship is so important as well. So I've put in some things here. She said, you'll get this to say, what does this look like when you're navigating the school system? Schools are being told they have to be more inclusive. So if there's something that a parent doesn't feel like, they're concerned about with their child, it starts with the class teacher. But the class teacher has to have more training. And at the moment, class teachers don't have enough training around special needs. And then it goes to the Senko. I always say to schools, I went to do some training in a school, and I said, who's in charge of special needs? They all pointed to the Senko and said, that lady over there. And I said, no, actually, all of you are in charge of special needs. All of you have a duty of care, you have a responsibility. And then it's thinking, ultimately, the head teacher, the governors are responsible for making sure that child gets their needs met. So when schools are being dismissive and saying it's just the Senko, it's not. And I always challenge that. Put everything in writing. I cannot emphasize enough when you're speaking to schools to put that in writing. So you've got that trail of evidence if something happens. It's really hard when I say to people, a child can come back and sue you, when they're in their 20s because they haven't had the right education. And this is the thing schools don't necessarily understand, that evidence has to be there to say you tried. They've just issued some new guidance on exclusions and suspensions where they've said you have to show evidence that you've put things in place for the child before you exclude. You can't just say that child's excluded, so that's got a lot stricter. And also sharing information as well is really, really important. So I've put that in there just for some tips to say, if you do have any difficulties, these are some of the things to do. I said put concerns in writing. I've just said the same thing, but that's really, really important as well. Getting that support. I saw somebody here, there she is, from local parent and care is so important that you're speaking to people. Now that I've left Hampshire, I can tell you, I used to organise the Senko forums for centres across the local authority, and I used to organise the conferences as well. There's one conference I always get parent carer representatives, and I invited parent carers to come along and do a talk about their experience. Senko said, we weren't really expecting to listen to that. And I was just like, this is exactly your problem, because you should be working with parents, not seeing them as the enemy, which is really, really important. So that's really important. I'll just finish this and then I'll take the point.
Locally, the Senko's embrace having us at the conferences, and we do go and we do talk about those personal experiences. So actually just sharing in Southampton, it is a little bit different.
It is.
Embrace it.
I think with Southampton smaller as well.
Much easier.
It's so much easier. In Hampshire, there's so many schools, there's so much bureaucracy that you have to get through to get anything done, which doesn't suit a brain like mine. I'm like, why can't we just change this? Why can't we just do this? So that's really, really important. So I've just said again what I was saying, I've just reiterated it, in terms of that communication, in terms of that engaging with families is so, so important, and changing that. And just thinking culturally, that cultural context is so important. Sometimes, this happened with my son, they rang me and said that we've got a safeguarding concern. And I was like, okay, what's happened? He said that something happened and the bathroom flooded and his dad beat him for it. I was like, what? When did this happen? I was at home and I ran to the bathroom and I looked, I was like, I don't think the bathroom's flooded. The first thing was, I should have said, is that wouldn't beat him, but it's like those kind of assumptions. I said to the school, I don't know what you're talking about. And then when I spoke to my son, he said, oh, me and my friends were just joking around. I said, that's not funny anyway. Me and my friends were just joking around and a teacher overheard us. I was just like, things like that. Sometimes schools will make an assumption, or sometimes they won't investigate things because they say, oh, in this culture, in this community, this is what people do. And that gets on my nerves as well. But then at the same time, if you've got such a concern about my son, investigate it. Don't ring me and say, oh, he says he's been beaten. I'm not the person you should be ringing to say that. You know, do a referral if that's the case. So it's all those kind of things. The assumptions can be very, very dangerous. So, what I just wanted to say, just as a takeaway, I'm very open with sharing my story because I know there'll be somebody that says, I need to go back to school and talk to them about my experiences. I need to think differently about the experiences I'm having with my child. I need to think about all the, you know, things as a condition rather than as a deficit or a disorder. What does that look like? Even if the language isn't there yet in terms of the DFE and what's being said, it's how we treat children within in our households. And thinking about that, listening to their experiences. What would have happened if I hadn't listened to my son when he'd said that people or school had been treating him like that, and I believed the head teacher or hadn't challenged the head teacher? He would have lost his confidence and he would have been a different child now. And just thinking, yeah, what that looks like in terms of the reforms. So I'll just get on to... So when I talk to the DFE and people in government and organisations, this is what I'm advocating for. So last year I was a consultant on a documentary that the chef Jamie Oliver was doing about dyslexia. And this is what I was saying we need to advocate for. Support from the government when it comes to thinking about what those needs look like. Again, I had a meeting with the DFE, and it was like they called every black and brown person that they could think of that worked in education, and they called us into this meeting. They said, we want to talk to you about intersectionality. This was about 3 days before the consultation closed. So it was far too late. So we all said it's far too late to be talking about this now. This has been open for how long? It's always seems to be an afterthought. So it's things like that we just have to keep making a noise about it. I'm a great believer in baseline assessments. I know Portsmouth, I'm not so sure about Southampton, but I know Portsmouth are doing universal neurodiversity screeners now. I'm a massive believer in that, you know, just to look at...
in September across Southampton.
Oh, great, okay, fantastic. So Southampton are a bit ahead with that as well. Improve support for multidisciplinary services, that communication as well, and that representation, really important. So, quiz answers. It's that time. Sorry it's so small again. So UK population, according to the last census, we've got new results coming out soon, I think. 18.3% UK mean. That's what they said. Who said yes? They got that right. Well done. Okay. School-aged children from minority ethnic backgrounds are around 36%. Was about 30-something%. You got it right again. Oh my gosh. And that is that category other as well, which is such a massive category. It needs to be, you know, taken out. Prevalence of neurodiversity, we think between 15 and 20% of the UK population are neurodivergent. A lot of people haven't got a diagnosis, but it's catching up as they get older, especially women when they get to the menopause and they're realising this isn't just the menopause, I think there's something else going on. And then they're going on to be diagnosed with autism, ADHD, things like that. Women in particular, they'll be told that they've got depression, anxiety, things like that, and not what that underlying need is. So that's what it looks like. The most prevalent one, which I should have put on here, is actually dyslexia. So 10% of the UK population are thought to be dyslexic. If you're from a community where a written language, so my background, my parents are Ewe. Ewe was written by German missionaries as when the language was written down. Before that, it was an auditory language. So thinking about that, we have more prevalence of dyslexia in Ghana amongst communities that did not have a traditional written down language in that way. So that's really important to think about that. And actually, Ghana is a lot more inclusive than Britain, which is why I keep going back there and talking to them about what, and that looks like they're doing a lot of work around that. And the lowest diagnosed ethnic group are black children, especially black girls, because as I said, they're always looked at as having, not always, but they're more likely to be looked at as having a behaviour difficulty. So I'm supporting a school for children with behaviour difficulties at the moment. Lots of children that have been in gangs, lots of history of abuse and things like that. They're all diagnosed with SEMH, but then actually when we've looked at their history, what makes them more susceptible to being in a gang is their vulnerability around being autistic, which people don't recognise. So it's really important to think about that and reframe that. And then when it comes to school leaders, 8.2% of head teachers are from a minority ethnic background. Now when you look at the school population, we're saying that's around 30%. What's happening when that's narrowing down, when 30% of children have decided they're not wanting to work in education? 0.2% of head teachers look like me, 0.2%. I was the only black inspector in a team of 65 inspectors. Actually, any person of colour at all. There were no Asian inspectors, there was just me out of 65 inspectors. When I left, then they did get an Asian inspector to replace me. So she's my replacement. So this is what I'm saying, in terms of the higher up you go, it's not representing the populations in school, which is really important as well. So, who got all those answers right? Just you! Anyone else? Okay, so you get the prize. So I'll give you a copy of the book. Well done. Pardon? Yeah, I'll check it. Once a head teacher, always a head teacher. I'll come and check it in a minute. So that's just to say, you know what? I actually almost finished on time. We started a bit late, but wow, I'm surprised for myself as well. And just thank you for listening, and thank you for having me. If you want to get in touch with it about anything, those are all my details there. I'm not on Twitter because it's very crazy on there, but anywhere else, if you want to email me, you've got my details there as well. But thank you. I'll take any questions if you have any, and I appreciate you having me today. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a question, so...
Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to ask a question.
Yeah, of course.
So obviously this was all about, do you want me to go on that?
Yeah, that's, I think it was, if you, it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm loud enough. I can
We can hear you.
This is all about, from 0 to what? School leaving is what age?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
25.
Yeah,
25.
But the HCP goes up to 25. Yeah. That's the problem now.
What's the pathway for after 25? Because there are women, adult onset, what's it? Adult onset ADHD.
Yeah.
And you're talking to one. So
yeah.
what are the pathways for that?
Through your GP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with me, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 44, and my route was through the GP. So I had a private diagnosis because I was just like, I don't know what's going on with my brain, and it was causing me to feel really down. So I had a private diagnosis because it was a lot quicker, but then I went back to the NHS and it took 7 months. Now it's a bit longer, maybe like, I've heard it can take between 2 to 3 years.
One question there as well.
Yeah, you mentioned before that there's a link established between meningitis in childhood and ADHD.
Yeah.
I suppose it doesn't mean there's a definite, I don't know.
Yeah. It doesn't mean there's a definite, but with ADHD, what we know now is it can be caused by brain injury as well. So there's always been this debate around nature, nurture, and I think a lot of children get diagnosed with ADHD, but it might be trauma as well. And so there's more investigations into what that looks like, but there definitely is a link between brain injury and ADHD, because it affects your memory. It's all about working memory, isn't it, and processing, so yeah.
Is there, you know what causes...
Sorry, can you not put
autism?
me in the frame, which you didn't ask for permission? I don't want to be in it, especially after what we just said.
Oh, I don't think they can see you on that.
Okay.
No, it's just focused on me, yeah. Sorry, go on.
Is there a cause of autism? Is it established at all? Or is it just random?
Yeah, it's completely random. You have a history in your family. So now that a lot of parents understand that they might be autistic when their children get diagnosed, you see.
Yeah.
But because we have this better understanding of what that looks like, that's where people kind of recognise their own experiences. So with my family, I know I started looking at autism when my son was diagnosed, and I didn't go to his appointment because I was working, my husband went, and I remember he got back, I was so annoyed, because he said, they were asking me questions, I was like, that's what you do, you're like that. And I was like, why would you say that to them? And then after a few years, I started to come to terms with it and think, actually, I do have a lot of those traits. Then going back to look at my family and my parents, I can see my mum's very much like that, but they're in Ghana. So in terms of the environment, it might not be recognised in the same way or seen as a difficulty. You know, it's just that's how that person is. But I think once you see that that child is developing difficulties around their needs, that's when it's really important to make sure that you've got that understanding. But there's been lots of myths over the years. So one child I'm working with who's autistic, has a diagnosis of autism, he's never had any vaccinations. His mum is very anti-vaccinations, but there were some rumours a few years ago that it was caused by vaccinations. But this is why we're seeing a rise in things, you know, communicable, you know, diseases and condition infections, because people aren't getting their children vaccinated. There was a head teacher that I was supporting once. She said, you know, it's all in the water. And I just thought, you're a head teacher and that's what you're saying to me. There's no evidence of that, you know. So there's lots of myths around it, which, you know, from my understanding, none of them are true. So, yeah, yeah, lots of myths, yeah.
And presumably,
yes.
The proportion is the same in all communities.
Absolutely. But I think in more Western societies, if it was ADHD, then people can take medication, you know, and there's a lot of emphasis on medication for things, you know. That's a very Western model response to autism and things like that. So I have a lot of children that I know who are put on antidepressants or sleeping tablets or things like that, you know, anti-anxiety medication, things like that, when we're not thinking maybe we should just change the environment so they can thrive, you know. But in other countries, that's not the response, you know. I always say, when I go to Ghana, I don't feel neurodivergent. I don't, you know. I wake up whatever time. If I say to someone, oh, you're supposed to be here at 9, they turn up at 11:30. It's like everybody. But in England,
only the African time. African time.
So next time this event is starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, not 11 o'clock.
Give it 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours.
It's 9 o'clock. Even if it's advertised on the poster at 11, it's 9 o'clock.
But it's like, I was talking to somebody and she was from Singapore, and she was saying, she was telling me if you turn up to a wedding on time, it's rude.
Yeah, the Spanish.
Yeah, and I was like, well, there you go, that's our excuse. But on the ADHD diagnosis list, one of the criteria is around timekeeping. You see, so that's a cultural difference as well. So there are lots of things that maybe wouldn't be seen as a deficit in another country, you know, when we're looking at the criteria. So, and that's changing all the time. So it's things like that. What does that look like in somebody's community, in their home environment, you know? How do we recognise things? I do a lot of stuff around food and nutrition and things as well. So I say to people, when you're looking at food, no child should be having food that they can't understand what that means, you know, like E-numbers and things like that. You know, we shouldn't be giving those things to our children, you know. There's been studies that have been done around, you know, what the effect of E-numbers, junk food, things like that on children. So when my children were younger, I was very strict with their food and what that looked like, making sure they had natural ingredients and things like that. To the point now, they still only have like water, and they choose that themselves, you know, which is really good. They check ingredients like aspartame. You know, this is a chemical that's used on rats, and it's in our food. You know, all these kind of things, so important just to, you know, think about food and what that looks like. So I think that's the one thing people will say that can have an effect on a child in terms of the food that they're eating and things like that. Like, yeah. And children are vaping in primary school now.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
Honestly, you know, vaping in primary school, I just don't understand that, you know, and energy drinks and things like that. It's just, oh, anyway, I could talk all
And
day
energy
about
drinks
that.
are sold inside the school?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
One last question.
Yeah.
Has any link been found between premature and ADHD?
Yeah.
Because twins can be.
Yeah, and this is the thing, when I look at my own children, I've got twins, and they weren't born prematurely, but they were born early, and they had quite a traumatic birth, and I had them naturally, and it was just a whole thing when they were born. So there are some links between some condition and what that means to be premature. Actually, I was reading a study that was looking at autism and eating difficulties as well, so anorexia and restrictive food intake and stuff, and they said there's a link between that and children that are born prematurely, and especially if they're tube fed and things like that. So there's lots of different evidence to say there might be a link between things, but also I think autism can be used as a catch-all when people don't really know what's going on, and especially when a child has learning disabilities, they might say it's autism. Well, actually, a lot of children have like auditory processing difficulties, but if you're in an area that doesn't diagnose that, then they might put that under autism, you see, things like that. So lots of things depend on the area you are as well, which you shouldn't do. So for example, in Essex, you can't get a diagnosis of dyslexia. So the local authority don't believe in dyslexia.
But this is failing. It's failing. The NHS is failing that patient.
Exactly.
You know, and that's just human rights against that.
Absolutely.
You know,
so something. No, it is. It's true. So something like auditory processing disorder. There's only 2 specialist clinics. I think one's Great Ormond Street and another one. So when I go to see children with auditory processing disorder, that's really difficult for them to get that support with. So yeah, it's a whole mess.
It's all about.
It is a mess. There was another question this side if we have time for.
Mine was your work seems to be on the minority group, or the Black or Asian background. And looking at your experience, it tells me that you get exposed to everyone.
Absolutely.
So what has been your experience with the white background, the children or parents in such situation or difficulty?
I would say I have to make a difference between white middle class parents and white working class parents. Because my experience is that white middle class parents tend to know the system better and have more access to support, and they're believed more. This is why people tend to get diagnosed a bit earlier. So a lot of the time in my school, if I had a challenge, so I used to get like 25 referrals for each school place. And I'd get a letter from a local MP to say, oh, you need to admit this child's really struggling, when actually children from other backgrounds wouldn't have access to that, or wouldn't know how the system works in that way. And especially, as I said, with the example of the parent I'm supporting at the moment, money has a massive factor in that. So he's not from a middle class background, but he has access to money, and that money meant he could get the assessments done and everything else like that. So there's a book by a professor who's talking about how some parents try and copy what white middle class parents do, thinking they'll get the same results, and they don't. So things like that is really interesting to think what happens. And I would say the system's not fair for anyone, you know, at the moment. That's the biggest problem. But I find that parents from our communities don't have that access or don't have that understanding because they don't have people that work in education as well that can tell them as well. So it's very rare to find a head teacher with special school experience from my community in that way, or as a SENC or whatever that looks like as well. So. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you. A big round of applause again for Francis. Wow. That was amazing. I'm really blown away by that. And the amount of knowledge I've gained from this. Even just learning about, having that inspiration from Emmanuel, and just helping you to achieve what you think that you can not achieve. That is really, really inspirational. And thank you so much for sharing this with us. Yeah, that was amazing. And at least the conversation can keep going on and on. We will never stop, but we've got time to work with. Yeah, at this juncture, we will invite our sister Sarika to give us a bit of a story of herself, and we will take the next one on the program.
Thank you, Gabriel. Again, Francis, thank you so much for coming over and talking about all those really, really important aspects. There were so many times when she was talking and I was like, yes, this is like, same thoughts, I feel the same, I've seen the same. So some really, really important things. My name is Sarika, or Sarika. It's actually Sarika, but a lot of people call me Sarika. It doesn't matter. There's nothing in the name, to be honest. So it's a journey that I'm going to share about love, learning, and neurodiversity. So I am a mom of two. I'm a volunteer at the temple. Volunteer as an assistant secretary and manage events. I also work as a financial advisor and I do a little bit of work at the Unity 101 as a volunteer presenting some shows. So that's my journey, and I'm going to talk about something really important to me. But before I talk about it, I just have a question for everyone. In this room, how many of you have children? Just put your hands up. Lovely. Or children or grandchildren, doesn't matter. Okay. How many of you had your children started talking at the age of 1? How many of your children started talking at the age of 2? At the age of 3? At the age of 4? At the age of 5? Anyone who have children over 5 years and still doesn't talk? Okay, Gabriel?
What's the reason behind it?
Autism. So that's what we're going to talk about in a minute. So, yes?
Not children who have spoken at the age of 2.
Yeah.
And after that haven't stopped speaking.
Yeah.
What's the diagnosis mean?
That is also part, something called regression. I'll come to that point. So this is my children, 6 years ago. My daughter Shania and my little boy Shivi, who was born in the Southampton hospital in the Princess Anne. And Shivi was, when Shivi was born, the birth shall I say, the delivery was horrendous, really, really bad. I was told that I was lucky to be alive. A lot of issues happened during the delivery, and a lot of it, I personally believe, is down to having NHS staff members who were not really yet ready to deliver the children, basically deliver the babies. Anyways, I was asked, are you happy to have a trainees around? And I said, yeah, absolutely, no problem at all. We all learn at some point, but what I didn't realize, at some point, for a few hours, they would just leave me with a trainee, and that trainee did not understand that my child is deprived of oxygen at that point. So I have strong beliefs that Shivi was diagnosed with autism because of the oxygen deprivation at the time of birth. However, at that point of time, I didn't know anything about this. I had no idea, because he was born, he was presented to us beautifully. I was completely unconscious. I had no idea, because I was having another challenge, that my placenta was not coming out. So they had to take me in the operation theatre and manually scrape the placenta out. That was another 4 hours procedure, and I lost 60% of the blood from my body, which I was told by 2 different doctors that most people in your condition do not stay alive, they die. So you are there for a reason. I was like, fantastic, no problem. I'll do what I can. But the funny thing is, when Shivi was born, it was more as Sarika's story as a fighter, because I am kind of, I was at the risk of dying. We had no idea what Shivi has been through at all. Then we got diagnosis later on, that I will talk to you about in the journey, that he now has autism. He is non-verbal, that's why I said that he doesn't talk. He's 6 years old now, but he still can't speak. And he's got something called PICA. PICA means, I think those who are parents of autistic children would know, but in a layman term, it means that the child puts everything in their mouth, whatever they get. They don't understand the difference between, say, a food item and a safety pin. They don't understand the difference between a cardboard and a coin. It's as simple as that. They just put it in their mouth and chew it and enjoy it, basically. And he has global development delay, which means his development is delayed. But Shivi came into life in February 2020. And as you all know, we all went into lockdown in 2020 in March. So initially, we had no idea about Shivi's diagnosis or any sort of difficulty whatsoever. He did not show any signs at all. In fact, when he was 1 year old, I observed for a little bit that he is not interested in the birthday, he's not interested in the cake, he's not blowing the candle. And I was like, fair enough, he's just a different kind of a child. He's not interested, that's fine, it's nothing to worry about. When he started nursery, a private nursery at the age of 11 months old. Initially there were no concerns. When he was about 15 months old, his nursery teacher came to me and said, Mrs. Chandrana, we want you to get Shivi's ears checked, because did you realize that he doesn't respond to his name? And I laughed and I said, well, he's a typical boy, isn't he? That's what his dad does. He doesn't respond. And the lady said, no, on a serious note, we really think that maybe his hearing needs checking. And I said, fine, fair enough, I'll get it done. We'll get under the system, get his hearing checked. We started with the journey of maybe something gone wrong with his hearing, but potentially. But then I was like, no, but if we have a TV on in the living room and he's in the kitchen, he runs away and he comes and watches the TV. So he can listen. And they were like, but we still have a doubt. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll get it done. So then I got in touch with my friend who I tried NHS first. NHS had a massive queue. I was like, I'll get privately done because I'm not waiting for the hearing test. So I went privately, and my friend, who is an ENT specialist, he organized a private assessment for us. And we do the assessment and he doesn't respond. And the doctor came back saying, we can't confirm whether he hears or not because he's not responding to anything. And I was like, okay, thank you very much. What do we do? Oh, we should repeat the test again in 3 months' time. I said, okay, fine. So £1,000 down the line, we still get 2 diagnoses, inconsistent because he's not responding. So I was like, what do you want me to do then? So then they said, maybe talk to a pediatrician because it looks like there is some other issues going on here. Until that moment, I still have no clue what's going on. Then I started Googling because the 2 assessments came back inconsistent. I was like, why would he not respond? So I started Googling, my child does not respond to his name. And then all the things about autism pops up, all the videos pops up, and me being me, as a mother, I started reading everything. I started watching all the videos, started watching everything that I could have think of. And then the panic button hit. What if this is autism? Like, no. You know it is a hearing problem. He just needs a hearing aid. So as a mother, I am talking to myself in 2 different voices. One voice is saying, what if he has autism? And it's a lifelong situation that he needs to deal with. The other mother comes back and says, no, Sarika, he's just got this hearing problem. We need to get the hearing test done and we need to get the machine. That's all. I was like, okay, I don't know where I'm going from here. Then I saw a lovely lady, my friend, Dr. Balvinder Kaur, who was here earlier today. She's a pediatrician. And she said, have you heard the word autism? And I said, yeah, I've heard the word autism. He hasn't got one. That's all I know. And she's like, okay, I request you to look into that in a bit more detail. 3 months after that having conversation, I've gone into complete depression. Because my mother instinct does not want to accept that my child has an autism. Simple as that. No matter who comes and tell me, I'm like, no, he hasn't got one. Move on. And then after 3 months, I really don't know what happened. One day I just woke up in the morning and I said, if you don't accept it, how do you expect the other people to accept it? So I was like, okay, it is autism. Maybe or maybe not. We need to get on with the diagnosis, with the therapy, whatever it might be. Spoke to a couple of doctors, spoke to some friends. Early intervention is really, really important. So heard all about that. And then these were the signs actually when we realized that it is potentially autism. So non-verbal, he couldn't follow any instructions, doesn't have any pointing or clapping. We actually had to teach him how to clap. And I was like, but every child knows how to clap. No, he didn't know. So we had to teach him. And one interesting thing that happened over the last couple of years is when he was 2, he's still not talking. So I'm getting really concerned about things. And my friends, family, my mom, my extended family, everybody says, oh, don't worry. His father didn't talk until he was 3. He'll be fine. He will talk. So, okay, fine, we'll wait. Then he's 3. People are like, he must be talking now. He's 3 years old. No, he still doesn't talk. And I still get those questions. He's 6. He must be talking now. It's like, no, he doesn't. Okay. And then people just stop. And they don't know what to say back because, I don't know, it's like they're stunned because they don't know what it could be. But obviously we know what it is. It is the speech and language that is an issue right now that we are working on. So that's when he was 2 years old, showing all these signs, I have spoken to the pediatrician, I got into depression, woke up and started thinking about therapies and all that. That day I thought, if I'm feeling like this, how many other parents might be in the same boat as me? And how many other parents might be struggling right now? So that's when Sanjay and I started this Facebook group. It's called Autism Parent Support Group in UK. and the community started building up, and we now have over 21,000 members on it. And all we do is, let's say I have a question about my child, and I'm not sure whether the autistic child does this, or is this something different, or how do I deal with this situation, how do I sort out this EHCP, or this EHCP question I have no idea how to answer. People just put the message out. If they don't want to put their name, they just put an anonymous message, and people respond on it. So it's literally just a platform for people like us to go and talk to other parents who might be in a similar sort of boat. So going back to our journey of autism, at the age of 3, we pushed, and from the age of 2, I was taking him to the pediatrician, and every time I was hearing 6 months, let's give it another 6 months, let's give it another 6 months. I don't think it's autism, probably too early to diagnose it. Okay, fine. Then one day I was like, he was nearly 3 years old, and I was like, this is really not fair, this is not working for us, what do we do? So we took him to Mumbai and saw the best neurologist in Mumbai, and we sat in the office, and within 5 minutes the doctor said, so you want to talk about autism? I said, no, I know about autism, I want you to diagnose him. I want you to write on a piece of paper that he is autistic. Can you see that? And he's like, yeah, even a blind can see he is autistic. It's like, no, the doctors in UK are not confirming it for whatever reason. Can you confirm it? Fair enough, no problem. They diagnosed him, obviously put it on paper, given me the reports and everything. Luckily they have hospital here, next to the hospital they have a therapy center in Mumbai. And this therapy center has all the therapies under one roof. So physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, behavioral therapy, any therapy you need, even aquatherapy. Any therapy you need, it is in the same building. So I was like, okay,
Have they found anything on that blood?
Yeah, we got the blood test done. We've got the blood test done. So one thing they can check on the blood test is this genetic? That's the only thing they can check. And they confirmed it's not genetic. We don't have autism in the family. We don't have anyone who has similar sort of signs. So that's why I'm so sure that it is to do with that negligence at the time of birth.
Birth trauma.
Birth trauma, yeah, exactly. But then the way I decided is I had 2 choices. I could either go and sue the NHS and say you made a mistake and whatever, and I'm gonna go after you and fight the case, or I can go the other side and say I'm gonna give everything possible to my child and work on the therapies, work on the diagnosis, work on his EHCP, work on his education, get him the best I can. So I chose option number B.
Well done.
Well done.
It is what it is. What's done is done. I can't change it.
It is not what it is. Sorry. You worked around it. So
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not going to dig on what happened. I'm going to try and prevent what could happen in future. So I'm trying to work on that. Once I get more time out of my family life, then I could potentially try and talk to the doctors in future or NHS in future and see how we can avoid this as well. But I think people are already working on it. So absolutely, I need to work on my family right now. That's it, my boy. So anyways, we got the diagnosis from India, and then when we were told about the therapy center, we were actually on a holiday in India for 4 weeks. We changed that 4-week holiday to a therapy holiday. We got a hotel next door and the therapy center, and we literally every day going from the hotel to the therapy center, then entertaining my daughter, who is now 12, at that time younger, entertaining her in the evening to make sure she's also enjoying her holiday and doing what she's supposed to be doing. Then we come back to UK, give that diagnosis to the doctor and say, look, that's what the best neurologist in Mumbai is saying, what do you want to say now? It's like, okay, fine, let me think about it, let me talk to some professionals, blah, 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 I'll come back to you. I said, fine, no problem. Few days later, a post come into the door says, we can confirm Shivin is autistic. It's like, bingo, finally. And then the EHCP journey starts. EHCP, in my case, was not as difficult as some of the other parents might have found. I think probably the diagnosis really helped. And on top of that, I think we had an amazing teacher in the school. The school was not so great, but there was one teacher who had an autistic daughter. So she could understand what I'm going through and what my son's going through, and she really helped us to get the EHCP. So we got EHCP quite nicely and easily done. And at the age of 3, Shivi had EHCP, Shivi had the diagnosis. So I'm thinking...
What does that EHCP stand for?
It's an education healthcare plan, and it's a legal document in UK. It's an agreement between you and the council that this is what your son's needs are, and whichever education system he goes into, they have to follow that document and provide the right support according to that document. Now, I was told that because you have an EHCP, it's a legal document, you won the fight. You just now tell them which school you want and they will give it to you. No, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. EHCP is just a start. Now, having an EHCP does not mean your child qualifies for a special needs school. So, in the EHCP document, I put down that my son needs this school. Hampshire County Council comes back and say, no, we will decline it because we think your son can cope in the mainstream school. And I was absolutely shocked and stunned by that, because having the diagnosis, having EHCP, seeing he's non-verbal, he's got pica, he needs one-to-one support all the time, how can you then say he's going to cope in the mainstream? And the letter that was written to me in February, I did not get that letter until I actually went to them in May and I said, where is my decision? You haven't told me where my son's going. So in May, they are sending me this letter, and apparently the letter had a 2-month deadline. So they said, the letter was written in February, so if you want to appeal my decision, you need to come back to me within 2 months. Well, 2 months have already passed. Before I get the letter.
The letter was lost in the post.
No, the letter didn't even come through to me. They could have emailed the letter to me, but they didn't. So anyways, I went back and I said, I don't give a damn about your 2-month timeline. You need to start my case now, as of today, because the letter came in the email today. My 2 months start from now. I am saying to you now, I am going to appeal it, and I'm going to go ahead with it. Anyways, we were trying to appeal the case, but in the meantime, I had to work out where to send my son, because if the council is saying he is going to go in mainstream, I think he should be going to the special need education school. While I'm still trying to fight the case with the council, I need to decide where I send my son. So I decided that I will accept what the council is saying, because at least he will stay in the education system. Because if I take him out of the education system, they could put their hands up and say, well, you decided as a mother to take him out, so it's not our responsibility anymore. So the mainstream school said to me, you know that your son shouldn't be coming here. The council knows really well he shouldn't be coming here, and we know that as well. We've given this in writing to the council, but they are not ready to listen to us. But we can't do much about it, because we come under the council. So the best we can do for you and your son is we can have him 2 hours a day. Every day, you send him 9 o'clock in the morning, and you pick him up at 11 o'clock in the morning. And what we would request you, Mrs. Chandarana, that you stay in the car park every day. So if there is a problem, if he is becoming a difficult boy, or he needs to go home, you are there. Because by the time you come back from home, it might take you 10 minutes. Okay? No problem. I'll stay in the car park. So I started sending him to the school. I took a couple of days from work, and I was like, maybe it's just a very temporary arrangement, maybe a week, 2 weeks, and then he will go into the special needs school, because that's what I've asked for. And he's got this E&CP document. Then I realized, no, he's going to probably go here long term. So I had to make a phone call to my manager. I'm working full time in a bank as a financial advisor. So I had to make that phone call, and I still remember how difficult that call was for me, because all the questions my manager is asking me, I don't know the answers to them. He's asking me, so when is this going to finish? I said, I don't know. Oh, okay. How long you need this leave for this 2 hours thing? And I can give you some compassionate leave for a week or 2 weeks. Do you think it will be done in 2 weeks? I said, I don't know.
For life.
Exactly. I'm like, I have no idea. And he's like, well, you don't really have any other option but take a sabbatical leave in that case for 6 months. Maximum we can give you 6 months. I said, do what you need to do. I have to be in that car park for 2 hours, and then my son is going to be with me for the rest of the day. So clearly, I can't work. I can't go and see clients. I can't do my reports, whatever I need to do. My brain's not working. I'm frozen. I'm going to take time off. So I decided to go on sabbatical leave, thinking maximum 6 months. It can't be going for more than 6 months. And then, in the meantime, we filed this tribunal appeal, and that's where we met Preeti Nair, amazing lady. She really deserves a round of applause, guys. So, I know Preeti as a friend, but I approached her as a Senko of the special needs school, and I said, Preeti, my head's spinning, I really don't know what to do, because I have applied for this appeal and to go to tribunal, but my first hearing date in the court is after a year. So now I know at that point that I'm not going to go back to work for at least a year, because my hearing is after 1 year. So then I had to make another phone call to my manager, and I said, look, it looked like 6 months, but it now looks like 1 year. And he said, the great news is, maximum we can do 1 year, so don't worry about it. Just do what you need to do as a parent. I said, fantastic, thank you very much, appreciate that. Then we sat down one day in Preeti's restaurant, and we look at all the paperwork, and Preeti's like, you need this more, you need that more, you need to get this document sorted. I was like, okay, Preeti, I'll sort it out. And we get everything ready. A year later, we have this mediation meeting, and everything was thrown on my face, like, it made me feel like I'm a bad parent, basically. It's nothing to do with the council, it's nothing to do with the school, all my fault. I'm like, it's okay, I'm not going to accept what you say, I'm going to keep fighting. They try to make the whole system is designed in such a way that there are points when you shatter, then you shatter again, then you pick yourself up again, then you shatter again. It's a constant fight. Anyways, while we are going through this journey, obviously there is a lot of judgment, confusion, judgment about my son. Obviously, he's running around doing whatever he wants to do, still not talking. So there are people around us who are probably thinking, you okay?
Yeah.
Good. There are a lot of people thinking, you haven't disciplined him. He needs more discipline at home. It's like, thank you for telling me, but I know what I'm doing. He's my boy, I'll look after him. He doesn't need discipline, he needs more love. And if you can't give it to him, no problem. There you go. So I have not accepted anybody coming and telling my boy off for what he is doing, because he's doing nothing wrong. And he has no bad intention. He is just being himself. Now that means he probably doesn't listen to you. If you say, should we sit down here? He doesn't understand it. So he's not responding to it. And And if you think that's disrespect, that's your problem, sorry. Exactly. There are times when we have to obviously handle him quite carefully because he does not understand the risk or the dangers. So we could potentially be walking on the street with him and he could just run away. And I have to be very, very careful. We had incidents like that, and then it will frighten me for days, and I will just stay at home for days after that. And then I'll pick up myself again and say, you know what, you just need to get on with it. You can't live like this, so I just get back on. So judgments do happen, it's fine. I think that's why I am very, very passionate about raising more awareness around neurodiversity, because if you don't understand something, you're more likely to judge it. If you understand what might be going through behind that brain, then you're less likely to be judgmental about it. So, I mean, I'm not stopping anyone to be not judgmental, but it's really just understand this concept a little bit more and then do what you need to do. So anyways, this is our journey of the mainstream school and us going through the struggle, the mediation. We hired a solicitor. We took whatever we need to take, like for example, going to India, getting the diagnosis, getting the therapies for him, getting the private therapist here, and getting the speech therapies. The main struggle that we had with Shivi is around communication, and from NHS he was given 5 sessions at the beginning of the diagnosis, and at the end of 5 sessions I was told, I still find that so funny, you are now his therapist for the rest of his life, so you carry on with the learnings we have provided you with.
Then
yes.
she should have handed over to you, right?
I know. But anyways, to be honest, they have limited resources. That's all they can do. Fine. I'm gonna get what I need to do with my child. So we started learning things on YouTube. We started Googling things. I started doing online therapy lessons from India because I can't be in India all the time with a therapist there. But we have a lovely therapist that I connect to. She started doing online lessons for me. Now, having Shivi sitting in front of a laptop for an hour for therapy, impossible. But what I do is I learn what she's teaching me and then I practice that with Shivi. So we started doing all that. And what happened is, after months and years of hard work, Shivi is now nearly a little Einstein. He can do the most difficult puzzles you give him. He can do numbers, he can do planets, he can do spellings, he can do counting opposites, matching items. He just started typing. And his speech is coming.
Because of the mother's love. Yeah. That's not only that, but in this minority, it's ethnic minority, people are suffering.
Yeah.
I was a governor with my 2 daughters.
Yeah.
I was in girls' school as well as in the boys' school. I got 1 boy.
Yeah.
The main thing is discriminating the people.
Yeah.
With bullying people.
Yeah.
They do not take any action on that one.
Yeah.
And I was against it, all the governors.
Yeah.
This is not right.
Yeah, we face that as well with both my children actually. With Shania, we faced bullying, so we changed the school, and it was apparently a private school that we had to move out from one private to the other private. And Shivi, you see him in that graduation coat, okay? I'll tell you a story about that as well. This is a private school he was going to, private nursery. I won't name any school or college or nurseries. He was going to a private nursery. This is where I met that amazing teacher who really helped me with the EHCP, but the head teacher of that school was literally trying her best to push him out of the school because she kept saying, we can't afford to have him, we can't afford to have him, you need to send him to the special needs school. And I was like, find me a special needs school that I can send him to, I'll send him tomorrow morning.
Who will support that?
This is exactly the thing. If the system's not giving me a special needs school, where do I send him? I am paying you every month to look after him, so please do what you can. When he had his graduation day in the preschool, apparently I was asked, Mrs. Chandarana, are you coming for the graduation? I said, of course I'm coming. And they said, do you mind sitting in the front somewhere to look after Shivi while we look after other children? I said, I don't mind helping you. That's absolutely fine. And me going with the best intentions, I was like, I'll take his toys, make him comfortable while they look after other children, no problem at all. And to my surprise, they completely excluded him from that graduation ceremony. He was literally sitting in the corner with me. All the other children are on the stage. And I was like, okay, fine, maybe his turn will come. Maybe his turn will come, Sarika. Keep the patience, keep the patience. And when they are sending children to get their certificate, graduation certificate, in the graduation court, everybody is done, and I'm there waiting, it's Shivi's turn. And the head teacher comes on and announces, thank you very much, all the parents to come in here, blah, blah, blah. Let's give a round of applause, whatever. Wow. And I am literally in tears, sitting there, thinking, you haven't thought about my boy at all.
That is the discrimination.
And then,
you take it out.
Then I stood up in front of the whole class, the parents and the head teacher and everyone. I said, may I please have a mic for a second? Yeah. I got the mic. And I said, I'm very sorry to say, but it looks like you've forgotten one of your students. His name is Shiven Chandarana. He's been sitting in the corner. You haven't given him the gown. You haven't done anything about him. Where is his certificate? Where is his gown? And they said, oh, we thought that he will not be able to cope with this. And I said, okay, let's go through it now. Give me the gown. I put the gown in within 2 seconds. I said, this is what patience is all about. You cannot treat him differently just because you think there might be another 2 seconds that you need to spend with him. You could have said to me that, Mrs. Chandarana, can you put the gown on him? Because he might find it difficult for us to put that on him. We need your help with that. And I would have helped you with that. But you decided to exclude him completely from it. And I don't know what impact he is having on it, but I am having that really bad impact, and I will never forgive you for this. So I put that down on him, and I said, you guys can go. I'm going to take some nice pictures of him. It's his day, now it's his turn. Bugger off. And after that day, I had a meeting with the head teacher, and I said, what kind of treatment was that? And then what they're telling me? We keep telling you in every meeting that we can't cope with his needs. You keep pushing him here. I said, I'm not pushing him. I need to find an alternative option. You tell me what an alternative option is, I will send him there. Anyways, well, after that, obviously he went to this mainstream school, and then our fight continued. And I'll tell you what happened to that fight. But before I do that, I just want to play something for all of you. I don't know if you can hear it, but that's his recent video. That's his first line he ever said, I love you. And this is me and Shiri last night, just on a laptop, he's typing. So he's typing all the letters, all the colors, names of the colors, and then he wants to make sure that color changes to that color. Like, it can't be just black. If it's a green, it needs to be a green color as well. But he has started typing at the age of 6. And all he needs is, when he finishes something...
Can I just pause you here?
Yeah.
Now that you started typing, I'm doing a massive drive for year 10.
Yeah.
Again, same lack of access to it.
Yes.
there is a BBC absolutely free app, and I'll send you the link. It's called Touch Typing.
Touch Typing.
And it's like a racing cars.
Okay.
So there are small racing cars which will come for the children, and there are words and the sounds.
Amazing.
And they just can, you just need to teach them where to place the fingers.
Yeah.
So they can start typing, because he would need that for his GCSE. So just to say, there are softwares which are
What is
available.
it? Can you repeat it again?
Oh.
What is the name of it?
It's called Touch Typing. It's
Touch Typing.
Touch
Touch
Typing.
Typing.
It's a BBC linked website which is absolutely free, and if your children are in year 7, 8, 9, it doesn't matter. Primary school as well.
Yeah.
It's like a racing car will appear, and the words would appear underneath it, and there is a volume of the words, so they can. It's basically to do with their metaphorical learning ability and gross motor skills. Everything is in one place.
If you don't mind sharing it with me, and what I will do is I'll share it on our temple WhatsApp groups, because that will be quite useful. But that's what he is doing. I mean, if I look at the growth he has had from where he was, now going into special needs school, he is doing amazingly well. And I think a lot of credit goes to the school as well. Plus, I think that drive that we just don't give up. And that's the message I want to pass on to all the parents, that your children may have special needs, but they do have a special talent. It's just about identifying that talent, or recognizing what is that they are very good at, and promoting that, encouraging that, and just keep loving them, really. They are no different. There is no fix to autism. We need to fix ourselves. And the other thing is, I think we focus a lot on what's missing in people. We need to stop focusing on what's missing and start focusing on what they have actually, because they are all God-gifted. So, lesson learned: patience, love, and perspective beyond measures. Every milestone, big or small, is worth celebrating. No matter what they do, if it's the smallest win, celebrate that. And connection doesn't look the same for everyone, and never give up. I think that's the biggest message I want to pass on to all of parents. And these are some Indian Bollywood movies that you can actually watch to gain more understanding on what is autism, because a lot of time movies can be a really great way of teaching us as humans, and there are some really good movies. I watched this Sitare Zameen Par recently with Shania. Yeah, I went to see that with Shania in theatre, and we both cried throughout the movie because we were like, that's Shivi. So yeah. Yes, absolutely. Love all of those movies. So yeah, no, thank you so much for listening to me. I really appreciate it. And just keep doing what you do for your kids, whether they are special needs or they're not special needs. Just keep doing every single bit you can.
Could you possibly go back and take a screenshot of this one? Yes, please.
That's it. My name.
Okay, a big round of applause again for Costa Rica. That was amazing. I mean, I literally tears in my eyes, because I was a similar story, a similar journey. Having a child who is nearly 10 and non-verbal, and the challenges that goes through every day is not an easy task. But yeah, as we've learned, we need that love and kindness is quite key. That love and kindness is quite key. So yeah, that was a really touching one. And yeah, we really thank you again, Sarika, for sharing that. Thank you, that's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, at this point we will invite Sister Cynthia as well. She's got a short story, a lived experience short story for us as well, to share her story. So Cynthia, if you wanna come forward.
Right. Wow.
I'm just thinking whether you have any slides.
No, I don't have a slide. Right. So I'm gonna read. So forgive me. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna put my glasses on.
Yes.
Because without it I can't see. But what I'm going to say is, as we sat down and we listened to our guest speaker and Sirika, there were a few things that were coming to me, and one of them that she spoke about is about causes. So what caused autism, and I could resonate with what she said about the birth of her son. I'm very bad at names, I didn't pick the name. But, and it got me sat there thinking what happened to me at birth as well. And it's just to shout out there within ourselves here, and also to also educate or advocate against it and help other people not to go through the same traumatic events that we have. Because I sat there and I was telling myself, yes, when my son was tested, it wasn't genetic either, so we both didn't have it in our genes, so what would have caused it? But then at the birth of Jude, my beautiful boy, I had another terminally ill son then, who had the big C. So I had to do a lot of radiation around him, MRI scan, and I was heavily pregnant with Jude, and I had to do all this. I didn't know the risks then, but then I did not have anybody, so I had to do it. So then when Jude was born and he had all the presentation that he had, initially they said it was a genetic disorder because he's got something called Soto syndrome. And Soto syndrome is a rare genetic disorder, and it's only about, they say, less than 90 people in the UK who have that genetic disorder, so it's a very rare one. But in America, it's very predominant in America. So what I'm trying to say is that when we can help our pregnant women, or when we can help in hospitals and we have sisters and mothers giving birth, when we can help, let us stand there and support them, because otherwise we tend to come out with children who might have or be born with some defect. So that is what I picked from what she said. Then with the East HCP and her appeal, I sat and I said, well, I did not have that experience, because I must say, whether I was lucky or where I was or the support that I have, I didn't have to go through all that. But has that made my journey any easier? No, it hasn't. And the story has been the same. I have had to live with constant stress, exhaustion, and sometimes I feel lonely and isolated, and I do ask myself the question, what does the future hold for me? What does the future hold for my son? And I don't say, you know what my wants are, those are the things that I feel, and my whatnots, and the wish and the hope that I have for the future. These are moments when I struggle to have peace, joy, and to bring happiness into my situation. Like any other parent, I hope for my life, the hope for my life. I did have hopes for my life and for my family. These were things I once enjoyed before I became a neurodiverse person. That now I really have the freedom to do because of the level of care that I have to have with my son. Recently, I have to invest into a running shoe because recently I have gone back to some of the things that I used to do and I love to do. And one of it is to do park runs. So recently I invested into a trainer. And when I want to buy these trainers, it sets me a few £100 back. And I asked myself, was it worth the money? But I will tell you, it is worth every penny that I spent on that sneakers. It doesn't matter whether I bought it 200 plus. Because when I run in it, the ins and the outs of the bounce that I get from it, it is so phenomenal. What is the point that I want to make here? The point I want to make simply is that early diagnosis, intervention and support transform family experiences. What feels impossible can become manageable. What feels overwhelming can become hopeful. Early understanding and meaningful support improve not only the life of the child, but also the well-being of all the family. Sorry. Without the support, family can be pushed to breaking point. The pressure can affect physical health, mental well-being, relationship, employment, finance, and family stability. With the right intervention, however, family can cope, children can thrive, and parents can continue caring without being isolated or unwell. This journey of a family raising a child or children with neurodiverse needs is not about personal strength or one's worth or status or your connections. It is rather about what is left when a family's usual support system are stretched, weakened, or no longer available. At this very vulnerable point in a family life, timely service, practical help, and understanding become essential and very crucial. I like to put my experiences and to describe them in few themes. One is migration, ethnicity, and barrier to inclusion. As a migrant from Ghana myself, I would say that I came into this country and I did have a well-connected network. However, that is not the experience of most people. There are some people who do not have this network, they do not have this support network, and therefore it makes their life very difficult raising a child with a neurodiverse needs. The family life in Britain has also changed significantly. More people live alone, there are relationship breakdown, and many parents are raising children without support of strong extended family network. I have experienced the sense of loss, hopelessness, and loneliness myself. These difficulties can even be greater when raising a child with a disability or with neurodiverse needs. The impact can be felt across every aspect of the family life, affecting one's mental health, stability, and overall well-being. I would say that in my journey, seeking and getting early diagnosis was very difficult. Every parent imagines that they're going to have a child, what they're going to do with that child, and how that child is going to bring laughter and joy to the family. But what happens when that child is different? When you have that child and he doesn't meet the very expectations that you want that child to have. When Jude was born on that cold January morning, I felt a relief and hope. I believe a new chapter was beginning for me. Like I've said before, when I was heavily pregnant with Jude, I did have another child that was terminally ill. And so I was looking forward to a different journey, a different life. But little did I know that it's going to be a different chapter altogether. Naive as I was, I did not know what Jude was even presenting, because just like our sister said, he did not walk on time, he did not talk on time, he was floppy, and he wasn't eating right. But to me, at first I did notice, or I did knew that something was not right, because although I wasn't medical, having been within the hospital for a very long time, I was able to pick that there was something not right with him. But did I push? Did I ask for help? Did I scream? I did all that. But was I being listened to? No. Nobody, I was not heard. All they put it down to is just like our speaker said, scratching at the surface of things and saying it was traumatic. He has had traumatic childbirth, because he has had a brother that has passed, he has had a traumatic birth and a whole lot of things. So it's nothing to worry about. But I know deep within myself that there was something not right. It took more than 9 years for me to get the help that Jude needed. I will say that he is in capable hands right now, but it has to come with a fight. And as a parent, as anyone, whether you're a grandma, a grandfather, an auntie or a sister, what you have to do for these children in this system that we have is for you to push. It's for you to fight. It's for you to not shut up. Because without that, you will go nowhere and you cannot advocate for your child. Now, the one other thing is about navigating the perception of others. That is a very big thing for us, because we are shamed. People do look at us in a way. They classify our children as having behavioral and unmanaged behavior because we parents are not able to train them well, or because we're doing something not right. So this perception of people affects us. It does affect our mental health. It does tend even to exclude us from things. But that is one thing I told myself was not going to happen to me. Because me and Jude, we were not going to be excluded. Jude is a lovely, happy, and social boy that will run to anyone to give you a hug, say hello, give you a high five, and will call you uncle, auntie, so far as you're a person of my color.
Why?
Yeah.
Because those are the people who show him love.
Well,
Those are.
We do as well.
So what I'm trying to say is that is because our children think in black and white.
Yes.
You know what? They think it's not because he wants to discriminate. So that is why I told you that it's not because he wants to be rude. It's not because he's showing a character. But because he thinks in black and white, that is what he sees. He won't run to a white person. He will run to a black person anywhere he is. He will find the next black person to say hello or hi to. He just the way he thinks. It's just the way he processes things. And this is what we have to embrace. This is what we have to become aware of. And this is what we have to understand. That he's not rude. He's not trying to discriminate, but that is how his thought processes are. When support matters most. So for me, this is another big area because daily life is not simply busy. It is demanding at every level. Jude has experienced delay across all areas of his development. Jude is in year 5 because he's 10 years old, he still can't write. But does he type? He's a fast typer. Although I have advocates for them to give him a computer or school so that he can I think when they explained to me that as much as that is his strength and that is what he can do better, they still need to let him model his fine motor skills. So they will still not introduce him to or make the laptop or the computer his sole way of writing. He struggles with
Sorry, Cynthia, just on that, have you dived into why they cannot forget about the other side? Because he's not your typical child. If he can learn and process everything on a laptop or on a PC, that is where his strength is. That is where he should be pushed, in my opinion. I don't know about the specialists. But I think we need to push on that, because you have university students, you have college students who do all their exams on computers. There's no writing. They wouldn't even be able to write their name.
But I did, for me, like I said, it's something that I picked up because I knew that his strength is in doing that. But when they explain the other side of things to me, that he needs to develop that fine motor skill, I did agree with them, because
the combination of both.
Is that well?
If he's not introduced to it, how will he learn?
It's not that because what I wanted them to do was that should be his main way of writing.
Way of communicating.
And that's his reasonable adjustments.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I haven't asked for it,
yeah.
But like I said, well, we can all discuss it now. What they explained to me, it's you processing what they say and seeing how it's going to benefit him. So if it's going to benefit his fine motor skills, then I think it's a reasonable thing for me to accept for now, because I know that his strength, he can already type and do things on the computer. But what I can't get him to do is to write. So if that is what they are going to concentrate on school, then I would allow it. That was my thought process then. And so, I have already talked about the fact that I did not want to be withdrawn because of the perception that people do have about our children, or where we can take them, or where we can be with them. I have had experiences where Jude was not allowed in shops, because as Jude gets into the shop, he will run for everything. I think everything screams at him. So he wants to go to the street, he wants to pack everything, he wants to shove everything out of the shop, so we can't go to the shop. But would I allow that to stop us from going to the shop? No. We have worked on it. And at the moment, I can give my card to Jude. I can park at the entrance of Sainsbury's and said, okay, Jude, we're just going to buy an ice cream. You want an ice cream? Okay. I'm going to give my card to you. You're going to go into that shop and you're only going to get an ice cream. And you're going to come back to me. So I will sit in the car, but as soon as he's gone, I will follow him. But it's just to teach him that independence. And that is one thing I've learned from Sarika, is that if his boy can do all the puzzles, he can do all the math, he cannot type, Jude can do the same. And that is my inspiration that I've taken from here today. And the other thing I want to talk about is change. Change is coming, but it's too slow. There was a time I went into a solicitor's office, and I went in to use the ladies. But as I approached, I saw on the door, they've written, I was expecting them to write disabled, but they did write on the door, enabled toilet. Yes. And I was so happy. I stood there and I was filled with joy, and I was so happy because at least some people are hearing us. Some people are making those reasonable adjustments to include our children and don't see them as a disability, but rather see them that we can enable them. So I will end on this note to say that the Ghanaian society have recognized these inequalities, or have recognized that we have to enable our ethnic minority people with advocacy, with respite, and also a tailored or specifically tailored need whereby our children, or we have people who best understand our children better than anybody out there, because the way we understand them will not be the way, or I don't know whether it's a cultural thing, because they are culture on a larger scale, we are in the minority, so whatever is advocated for, or whatever is established there is more geared towards the, should I say it, I don't know, white majority people, or than the ethnic minority, so we just have to fall in. But that is the gap that the Ghanaian society have identified, and we are working towards to fill that gap within Southampton, and we hope that this will spiral onto other communities. In conclusion, I would want to say that I have 3 hopes for myself, for my son, and I know it will be the hope also for any other child and their family, that our children can be happy, they can be supported, and they can be independent. Yeah. So let's fight for them. Thank you very much.
Disability. When we went to Dubai last year, everywhere on train stations, metro stations, everywhere you will see no disabled word. You will see people of determination. Yes. If you actually go to anybody and ask for help and say, I have a disabled child, they won't listen to you. They're like, what? What do you mean? Like you have to say, I have a person of determination with me. Then they listen to you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Cynthia. That was inspiring. We are learning a lot today. We are really learning. We are learning about change. We are learning about, how we're going to cope. The love, kindness, and the love that we're learning today. So thank you so much. At this point, we're going to introduce to you Amy. Amy, to come forward and share with us the story.
I'll keep this pretty quick from where we have overrun. So I am Amy, I'm from Southampton Parent Carer Forum, and we exist in the city to help bring about positive change. And the forum is led by 3 directors. We all have that lived experience, that's why I put this slide up, so I think it's really important you understand where we come from as well. So the first 2 pictures is David, my eldest, who's 17, he has no vision at all, and is likely neurodiverse. The bottom picture are my crazy girls. Annabelle, with all the hair, is on the ADHD pathway, and Georgina in the red hat is on the autism pathway. So they're my kids, and that's where I come at it from. In the middle is Kelly's young man. He is 13 or 14, and he's at Grey Oaks on pathway 1. And on the far end are Donna's young men. Aaron has autism and has just finished university. He's waiting for his graduation ceremony. Wow. And then Matthew has complex medical needs. You can see his trachea. He has cerebral palsy, and he is at college. So that is where we come from when we do this work. Yes. Underneath us, we have a steering group with lots of other lovely people. Clicker's not working.
It's not.
Sorry. Is it not
coming on to the screen?
So we have a team below us. Again, they all have that lived experience. We range of young people, different ages and different needs. And what we do in the city is 2 different main jobs. We have a strategic side to our work and also a family support side to our work. So with our family support, we run workshops for professionals coming in to support parents, and we've got one on sleep in a couple of weeks, for example, and it's the LD CAMS team are coming in to help educate parents around sleep and support them. We've had the Neurodiversity team in this week to talk to families about transition and supporting their young people over the summer holidays, for example, when there's that really big transition and we know families find it difficult. Oh, you've got the next one. Wrong way now. Okay. So we do the workshops where we have those professionals with that knowledge come in and speak to families. We do SEND get-togethers where it'll be some of our staff and some professionals, different people, different topics to help answer your questions. We have speech and language therapies, the educational psychologists, we have CAMS, we have confidence teams, different social care teams. So they come and do a bit of a chat with everyone, and then you have 10-minute bookable slots. So it's about bringing those professionals to the families there and then for that help and support. We do family events, so during school holidays, every week in school holidays, we will run 2 or 3 events for families. By families, we mean their siblings as well as the parents to come along and enjoy some quality time together. Things can do sensory reading, swimming, high school, which is the games arcade, so it's for different ages, different abilities, different needs. And I should have said earlier actually, anyone can access the forum. You don't need a formal diagnosis to receive our support or attend anything. You've got a bit of an inkling, something's not quite right, so you can just come along for that support. So they're the main things we do. Other odd things we've just done lots of work around EBSA, and on Monday tomorrow we've got the local authority coming, so Dan, who's the head of strategic SEND, is coming to a workshop with families around the SEND reforms. So the local authority have written their draft response, and tomorrow they're going to share it with families and ask for feedback from families about what else they would like in the SEND reform paperwork. The other part of our work is strategic work, so this is working across the local authority with the health board as well to produce new guidance and documents to try and help support families. So I know earlier the NDPT, so the Neurodiversity Profile Tool, was mentioned by Francis. So that's been trialled in Portsmouth. It's been in Portsmouth for about 5 years. Everyone's recognised it's a bit outdated, doesn't use neuroaffirming language, so positive language around it. So over the last year or so, it's been redeveloped with the Parent Care Forum, so myself, those from Hampshire, Isle and Portsmouth, to come together as a whole ICB footprint to rewrite that, and that is in trial at the moment and will be getting launched locally from September onwards. Rolling out in schools, then in early year settings and post-16, so it's all the way through. It's not just for school age. I think that's really important, because sometimes nurseries notice things aren't quite working, and you want to start strategies soon. The profile tool, for example, is needs-led. It is not diagnosis-led, and it's really important for things to move towards that needs-led model, and that's what we're about. Other things that have been mentioned today are the ordinary available provision, the graduated approach. That was a big document the forum and the LA worked on, and it's all about what should be available in school before you need an EHC. And that's on the council website, so it's worth looking at that if your child's got any needs. But yeah, lots of other things we do, from specialist dentists, CAMS, work with Health Watch, all sorts. So we've got quite a big role, but I would just suggest if you're interested or you need support, that's our website, that's a QR code to our website, and you can sign up to a monthly newsletter that will have all things listed on. That's it from me.
Hi everyone, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Sarah Jane.
Can we give a round of applause to Sarah?
So I just want to say, so sorry, I'm from Southampton City Council, and Sarika, Nikita, particularly Gabriel, Sadat and Cynthia, and Amy, sorry, I won't forget Karen Forum. But this event is so special, and I think it was one of those things where fate really kind of brings everything together. I was actually approached by the Ghana Association about some research they've done in their community, and shared that with me. And at the same time, I crossed paths with Sarika, and I was like, we're all trying to do the same thing here, so let's bring it together. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much, Sarika and the Vedic Society Hindu Temple, for hosting us today. It's been lovely, and the lunch was amazing. I need to get some recipes from you guys. And again, thank you to the Ghana Association, Amy, for the hours where we've sat in front of teams and in meetings and given up weekends and things to bring this event together. It's so amazing, very, very special. Thank you for the recording, all the organisers that came along today to share information. And Francis Akinde, I feel like I'm fangirling. I heard Francis speak at Southampton City Council a few months ago, and I was really touched. And interestingly, I'm neurodiverse as well, I've got ADHD, so I can't listen for very long. But for Francis, I could. I was absolutely just in awe. And I was, as soon as this was kind of coming together, because I remember you mentioned that you were Ghanaian, and I was like, hold on, again, it's fate. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. It's been a really special event. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.